Very good. So welcome to another talk in the middle of the retreat. And I'm going to be talking more about letting go this morning. You've all got the message that the path of meditation is not a path of concentrating and putting forth effort, but actually the opposite, letting go of that effort and learning how to be still. There was a famous story in the time of the Buddha's enlightenment, where before he sat under the Bodhi tree, and that's where he became enlightened, he put his bowl in the river, and he made this resolution that if I am to become enlightened, may my bowl flow against the current, and it did. And that was a famous part of the story of the Buddha's enlightenment. But it wasn't just an omen, like a prediction. It was also just a sign of how to become enlightened, which is going against the stream of craving, like the bowl went against the stream in the river. And to do that, it doesn't mean like craving not to do things. That's just another form of the stream of craving. It's actually to go against that stream of craving. It means actually to let things be, to let things go. Stop struggling and trying to make things happen. And that is the path of meditation. But it's not just a path of meditation, it makes things much easier, in your daily life. Because obviously you all come in here, with your history and with your fears of the future. And I did mention at the very beginning, one of the first things we do let go of is all the past and the future. And why people keep carrying that around with them is just one of the most craziest things a human being can do. And obviously when it gets to the past, one of the ways of letting things go is doing some forgiveness. And in order to forgive the past, and this is also learning how we can enjoy the present, is we develop this lack of fault finding. It's really strange that human beings, especially in the Western world, always like to find fault, with the government. And I've known a couple of government ministers and prime ministers and stuff. It's one of the toughest jobs in the world, to make these decisions where you're not going to be able to please everybody. And it's really tough, trying to please everybody and always have a camera in your face. So it's one of the tough jobs. In fact, I can't see why any intelligent person will want to be a prime minister, which is why we get what we get. But it's a tough job. And sometimes you meet some of these people, some of the, we had the patron of this place here, of Ajahn Brahm, was our Premier Jeff Gallup some time ago. And he had depression. That's why he left, being the Premier of West Australia. He was very popular. And I had a connection with him. But after, he was actually very close to the British Prime Minister at the time, Tony Blair. And I was cultivating, because he was actually Tony Blair's best man at their wedding. They were at Oxford together. And so I was cultivating my relationship with Premier Jeff Gallup, because if I could get him as a Buddhist, then the next stage would have been to get Tony Blair as a Buddhist. And from there, George W. Bush. And I'd have solved so many problems in the world. But he got depressed and resigned, and all my plans for world domination fell apart. But still, when Jeff Gallup, he was actually with Tony Blair at Chequers in London, just outside of London, when he found out he was depressed on holiday. He had clinical depression. So he actually came to see me to get some advice. And he always credits me with helping him out of his depression. And so, through a bit of meditation, through some positive counselling. And then afterwards, he became the patron, still is a patron of this Jhana Grove Meditation Retreat Centre. He came here for the opening, which was very nice of him. But I always used to tell him one important piece of advice, very simple, and he loved this piece of advice. He said, never allow other people to control your happiness. Because being a politician, he'd be in the news, he'd be in the newspapers, on the radio, on the television, always people trying to stir him up and just make him upset. And it was very difficult, because a politician would always be criticized. and people will always be finding fault with you. And so that little piece of advice really helped him. Never allow others to control your happiness. Your happiness is your business. And that's a nice piece of advice for you here. Somebody bangs the door, at 1 o'clock in the morning in your cottage. They snore, or they put the kettle on really early, or somebody says something which really upsets you. They don't really upset you, but you choose to be upset, because we have this terrible tendency, having a fault-finding mind, and not being able to let things go. And the classic story about that, which really helps, and it's going to help in the meditation too. Many of you know these stories, but I do repeat them for a purpose. It's not because I haven't got anything to say, but it's because these stories are so powerful that you can actually take them always to a deeper level, and it helps both your life and also your meditation. It's good to be reminded of them. And that is the classic story of the 2 bad bricks in the wall over in Bodhinyana Monastery. This was 31 years ago. As monks, we don't get any money from the government. Everything you see here is all donated by many hundreds, thousands of people. And it's not just the monks accept donations, say thank you very much and live the life of a king or a queen. But we work very hard as well. And I always like to remind people, especially on this side of the meditation hall, that the floor you're sitting on right now was laid by the monks on the night before the opening ceremony. Because you know what builders are like. The builder said, this place will be finished by January, February at the latest. So we decided to hold the opening ceremony on April, the Easter retreat, 6 years ago now, I think. The Easter retreat 6 years ago. It was a grand opening ceremony. We invited, obviously, the Premier, Jeff Gallup, and another few dignitaries, organised everything. And then the builder, well, maybe not January, maybe February. Well, February is looking a bit out of it now, maybe March. Well, we'll get it done by April for sure. And the day before, it still wasn't finished. And especially, the putting the wood on the concrete floor here in this hall where we're going to hold the ceremony. So, what happens? Monks. So there was a lot of us stayed up till I think about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to finish this here. Stayed up all night. We're having the big ceremony the following morning. And did they feel bad about doing? No, that was really good fun. It was great joy, doing something good for others. And so this is the monks. All the builders did all the other stuff, but the monks did this bit over here. And they felt so happy about that. It was our gift. So, we also help out. But, when I was young, they don't actually let me do any building now. The last time I did any building in this place, in the teacher's cottage where I'm living, I was putting the roof on, and Dania out there started taking photos of me on the roof, and put it on the website. And all these people said, Ajahn Brahm, you are banned from going on the roof. You're too old, and maybe a bit too heavy too. We don't want you injured. Get off the roof. So I've been banned from going on the roofs, at least when people are watching. But I enjoy a bit of building every now and again. It's really good fun. But anyway, the first wall I built, I'm going to go into the full story here because it is a great story and it shows you what fault finding is and how to overcome it. Every brick I made sure was perfect. You're perfectionists, like many of you are perfectionists. You want to do a good job. And so especially this was the first building, and I did every brick perfectly. And if the brick wasn't level, you'd take it off and do it again. It didn't matter about time, because I was not being paid. That's the thing with volunteer labour. It takes a long time because you're not rushed. But you get a good job done. So when my first wall was finished, that's when I looked back to admire my work. My first wall. That brick doesn't look straight. Neither does that brick. And there were these 2 bricks, only 2 of them, but these 2 bricks were crooked. And they stood out, they spoiled the whole wall. And so what did I do? I tried to scrape out the cement mortar with the trowel, trying to get it out so I can reset the brick. But you try this mortar here, it's just dead hard, it's like a stone, you can't take it out. Oh God, what should I do? So there's another monk with me, and this is absolutely true. I asked him, can we get some dynamite, blow it up, so I can start again. The next one will be okay. Next time, give me another go at it. And we couldn't afford any, let alone getting permission to blow up things. So I was stuck with this terrible war, and that caused me immense suffering. It's incredible. You think, well, why are you suffering for? But when these things happen to you, you know what I'm talking about. Other people say, just let it go, it's a small thing. Yeah, for them it's a small thing, but this is my wall, and I did it, and I stuffed up. And I would volunteer to be a guide when any visitors came. Because we had our first visitors, we want to inspire them, get some donations to pay off the debts and build some more buildings. And the last thing I would say, what we did with your money, look at this terrible wall I just made. So I would always be the volunteer tour guide to take them everywhere else. I would make sure they never see that wall. But I would always, again, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, as you do, sweating. I'd just been dreaming about my wall. Nightmare. And I had so much suffering with that wall. And every time you went past it, oh God, you idiot. Sometimes you have that. When you make a mistake, you think, can I just go back in time and do it all over again? But time is fixed. It's gone. You can't redo it again. Whatever happened to you. That was my brick wall, and I made such a mess of it. For 3 months, I was really upset, angry, depressed. And then what happened was this guy came one day, and I happened to be with him. He saw the wall. I didn't manage to lead him somewhere else. He saw it. And that's when he said, that's a beautiful wall. And I couldn't believe what he said. And my response, I remember at the time, was, are you blind? Have you left your glasses in the car? Can't you see those 2 bad bricks? And that's when he said, as you all know the punchline, he said, yes, I can see those 2 bad bricks, he said to me, but I can also see the 998 good bricks as well. And that hit me like the brick. And I thought, wow, I'm the one who was blind. I was, because every time I went past that wall, every time I thought about it or even dreamt about it, all I would ever see was my 2 bad bricks. I couldn't see anything else. And my eyes would just go to those 2 bad bricks every time. And now he actually showed me there was a brick to the left, the right, above, below, hundreds of bricks, other than the 2 bad ones. And I couldn't see them for 3 months. And that's when I realized that he was wise and I was stupid. There were 998 good bricks. And once I put the 2 bad bricks in perspective, saw the 998 good ones, I agreed with him. It was a beautiful wall. And that was so important in my life, because whether it's in meditation, in life, why is it that we just look at the 2 bad bricks, saying our politicians? Whether you're Labour, Liberal, Green or whatever, there's a great difference between Tony Abbott and Kim Jong-un. He's the Prime Minister, President, dictator of North Korea. At least Tony Abbott doesn't take, who's the president? No, the opposition leader. No, whatever. He doesn't take the opposition leader and the Greens into his room and shoot them, because that's what North Korea does, apparently. But, so he's not a bad guy. No one's a bad guy in politics. They've got a few loose marbles in their head, but other than that, they're pretty okay. But we always find fault with them, because we just see the 2 bad bricks in the wall. We don't see the 998 good bricks in it. And once I saw that, I could appreciate, the wall doesn't have to be perfect. But the end of the story, which again was a surprise to me, but it adds just that last little bit of, that little cherry on the cake, as they say, was when I told that story at the Cancer Support Association, which I always go to once a year or twice a year. And it was a builder who had cancer, and he was going to the support group, and he liked the story, but he came up to me and said, look, Ajahn Brahm, in the building industry, every bricklayer makes mistakes. Now, we always have these crooked bricks, but he said, I'll let you into a secret. And I've told this secret online to thousands of people. In Australia, in the building industry here, when we make a mistake like that, we tell our clients it's a feature. And we charge them an extra $2,000 or $3,000 for that. The only house in Australia like this is a feature, a new fashion. And I thought that's brilliant because, the mistakes in life, the two bad bricks, they are a feature. It's what makes life funny and interesting. And that's why we have a wonderful time, laughing at ourselves when we make mistakes. So I enjoy telling all of my disciples and listeners and audience all the mistakes which I've made in my life. And recently, the one they liked the most, it seems to be just by the laughter, was, one of the things a monk has to do is give marriage blessings and funeral blessings, like this afternoon. This is why it's in my mind. This afternoon I have to go and do a funeral service for somebody. And it was at a marriage blessing. These two disciples, this young dewy-eyed girl and this guy getting married, and they're just excited and just anxious as well. This is their marriage, and they want to make sure it goes well, because marriage can be really a lot of suffering. It can be just very fulfilling as well, and it's just really on the edge. So as a monk, I've got to do the very best I can to help them. So when I did the chanting, because I do work too hard sometimes, I admit that, and I was really tired. So I actually, just by mistake, instead of doing the marriage chanting, I did the funeral chanting. And because it's in Pali, like we do the Pali chanting here, they didn't know. They had no clue what was going on. As soon as I started, oh God, I've done the wrong chanting, but I had to carry on. Can't stop in midstream. And so for this couple, they got the funeral chanting for their marriage. And the strange thing, they're still together. So I make a mistake, and I tell everybody, now you're laughing, and I'm laughing at my mistakes. That's one of my many bad bricks in the wall which I've done in my life. But what happens is a sense of, you're human, and it's beautiful. You're not some sort of holy cyborg from outer space. A Buddhist monk is just not one of us. It makes you lovable. It makes life lovable, and it makes life happy. So when we look at bad bricks that way, they are a feature. They actually make life what it is. And after a while, when we understand this teaching, that's how we let go of things. To let go, you don't get those two bad bricks and just scrape out the mortar and reset them. You don't blow up the wall so you can't remember it anymore. You embrace it. And sometimes you laugh about all the silly things you've done in life, even some of the painful things in life. And we learn how to embrace them. This is how we let things go, by changing our attitude to these things. By letting things go, by embracing them, it's actually loving kindness. And I wanted to go on today, to teach about loving kindness meditation, another form of meditation, another form of meditation, but you can associate with every other type of meditation you do. You can combine these things. They're just like ingredients of a cake. Sometimes you can add more of this and a bit more of that and make the cake to your taste. And that's part of letting go, just to love the wall with its two bad bricks. And even to love your past. And of course, many of you in today's world have a really terrible past. You've really gone through hell. And fortunately, I was saying this to people over in the Greylands, the Mental Institute, the other day, that you can embrace your past, because many of those people, the doctors and the psychologists, psychiatrists, actually listen to my talks on YouTube, or they actually come to Dhammaloka. And many of them actually say that they get their permission to practice by studying at university. But all the practical stuff, the stuff which works, they actually get from monks like me. And one of those ones is the opening the door of your heart story. And especially there was some psychiatrists, psychologists as well, who work for this organisation called ASSETS, the Australian Society of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. And that is a powerful experience for me to go to that place. I think it's in Beaufort Street somewhere. And going there because these are some of the refugees who come to Australia. These ones, they don't go to these refugee camps because these are out and out refugees. They've been tortured and traumatized. They've been in these dungeons of the world. Some really awful regimes. And what they've gone through, makes your skin crawl. They're really, really, really bad stuff. And they come here, their body is free, but their mind isn't. They've got emotional scars which go right to the very heart. And, you've got to help them. What helps them most of all? You say, oh, just let it go. Yeah, sure. You've been tortured for weeks. Multiple rapes. Really bad stuff. Oh, open the door of your heart to it. Yeah, but how do I do that? What really, really, really works, two bad bricks in the wall, first of all, to see there's more to their life than what happened in those dungeons. Because a lot of time when we have a pain, a disappointment, a bad brick, how often is it that's all we see? And because we see it, there's no reason to let go because there's nothing else. I remember seeing a person with grief, really bad grief. It was a mother, for those of you who live in Perth, remember the Claremont killings? There was a serial killer, never caught, young ladies. They were out for the evening in Claremont having dinner or a nightclub or whatever, and they disappeared. Some bodies were found, some weren't. It was a serial killer, never found. And this was the mother of one of those victims, who just couldn't overcome her grief. And even though I tried to counsel her, she couldn't overcome her grief because she could see nothing else in her life. She could only see the two bad bricks in the wall. There's more to it than that. What else have you experienced in your life other than that terrible tragedy? It's hard to make people see that, but once you see that, it's an incredible, powerful result. Yeah, the two bad bricks are there, that happened to you, but there's other stuff in the wall, other things in your life. And I've also, as I said earlier, been spending a lot of time in the prisons, not so much these days. In my early time in Perth I did. I was really well known in the prisons over there. I advise the monks who go to prison now to teach, always keep a record of how many hours you spend in prison, volunteering, to be used as credit in case you get convicted of something. But I've already done 20 days of community service, so take that off my sentence, Judge. But I got one of my best compliments. Now sometimes, I don't mind, I talk about my mistakes, doing the wrong chanting at the marriage, but I also talk about, the good things I did as well. And one of the great compliments I got once was having a phone call in the monastery over the road from one of the prison officers and say, can you please come back and teach in my jail, my prison? These days I do travel around a lot, there's many other things I have to do. I don't have really time, I delegate that to other people. People keep saying, Ajahn Brahm, delegate. And I do, but sometimes people don't let me. So this prison officer said, I don't want anyone else, we want you, Ajahn Brahm, no one else. And I said, why me? The usual comment, why me? Why not another monk? And that's when the prison officer gave me this beautiful compliment, which I cherish. And he said, I've been in the prison service all my career, 30, 40 years. I'm about to retire. And I've noticed something unique. I've never seen this before. Every prisoner who comes to your class never goes back to jail again once they're released. And I thought, wow. I felt so happy about that. Because most people who go to prison, they get out after their sentence and they re-offend, they go back inside again. It's a revolving door. And that's one of the biggest problems which the government and social services, psychologists are trying to overcome. Okay, you do your time, you've done your crime, do the time. Can't you get back into life and do something useful instead of always coming back again? And apparently that I found some way of overcoming that. And afterwards I always thought, why? What have I done? And I realized it was this attitude of two bad bricks in a wall to realize there is no such thing as a criminal. And you've heard me say this before, but again, it's powerful. Every time I've been in a prison, I've never seen a thief, a murderer, a paedophile, a rapist. I've never seen anyone like that in a jail. I have seen many men who have raped. I've seen many men who have stolen. I've even seen men who have killed. But I've never seen a murderer. The difference is, I can see more than the 2 bad bricks for which they were put in jail. You see the other part of them. And sometimes I send other monks into prison, or I send some of the volunteers in our Buddhist society into prison. Maybe you've done voluntary service in a prison. And you know, when you go there the first time, and you come out, I don't know how many times people say this to me. They're just the same as us. Of course they're just the same as us. You don't think that these are from outer space, they're all Martians who go to prison, they're not the same as us. Of course they're the same as you. They're human beings. They're not monsters, they're not gorillas. You know, these are human beings who've done terrible things. They're beautiful walls with a couple of bad bricks in it. Once I see that, that's how I look at them. That's how they see it. It's amazing. What you see in another person is what they show you back. You know, if you see a person as an enemy, they show you their enemy side and they become your enemy. And if you expect them to cheat you, they will cheat you. Because what you see in another person is what you get back. That's why on your interviews, those who come for interviews, have I ever criticised any of you who've been on the interview so far? I would say again, very good, because I don't see all the stupid. You deserve to be criticised. But I won't do that to you guys and girls, because I want to see the other part of you. Because I want you to see the other part of you. I don't want you to see all the times you've had problems in your meditations. I want to see the other times when maybe only 1 minute for the whole retreat, but the time when the meditation was peaceful, when you were happy, when you were joyful. That's what I want you to see, because if that's what you see, that grows. If you focus on the faults grow. So inside a prison, if I focus, you're a murderer, you're a thief, you're a rapist, that's going to grow. That's going to be who they are. But when I focus on the other part of them, you're a human being. There's other bricks in your wall. So you can let it go of just focusing on the negativity. And focus on the other side. And some of the monks who would go over to the prison up the road over there, they were always saying, there's one prisoner up there, I think he's been in there for murder for a long time now. And he's always saying, he's been going around saying he's finally got it. He says, it's just 2 bad bricks in the wall, that's all it is. 2 bad bricks in the wall, that's all it is. He's over his crime. He's understood. For years he was thinking he was this terrible murderer. Now he realizes he's a human being who's murdered. Totally different ballgame. And that is actually how we forgive. It doesn't mean we forget and we ignore, we try and say, no, there's no 2 bad bricks in the wall, just put a picture of the Buddha over it or something so you can't see it. No, they're there. But you put it in context. And once it's in context, you can let it go. Go worrying about it. The world is a much bigger place. And one of the great stories, I always say, introduce stories like this. One again of the other wonderful things which came out of teaching like this is when I went to the Institute of Mental Health in Singapore some years ago for their, it was their 50th anniversary or something, having a big conference, and I got invited to give a keynote over there. And after I gave these typical Ajahn Brahm stories, 2 bad bricks in the wall and going to prison, never seeing a prisoner, this guy came up afterwards. He was one of the professors of one of the departments in the Institute of Mental Health. This was for everybody in Singapore with mental health problems, and also, if you know for Singapore, you know what I mean. They're making it a hub. Everything has to be a hub. The airport is a hub. The shopping centre is a hub. Mental health is a hub to get people from other countries to come there. And that's good for the economy. So a mental health hub for Asia. So, they're putting a lot of effort and money into this place. And this guy came up and he said, straight away, look, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, but I want you to come and bless my walk because I'm impressed with your talk. And then, you're Catholic, you want me to bless your ward, what are you up to? And then, sort of on the way there, just chit-chat, and said, well, what do you do here? And he said, I'm the professor of dealing with schizophrenia. And I said, how do you treat schizophrenia in Singapore? And that's when he really hit me. He said, just like you say, Ajahn Brahm, well, I don't treat schizophrenia in a schizophrenia ward. I treat the other part of the patient. And that was one time I just, we say about bowing, worship, I worshipped him. His wisdom, I thought, wow, well done. He got it. There's no such thing as a schizophrenic. There's a person with schizophrenia. There's a bigger picture there to see. And he was treating the other part of the patient, not just a schizophrenia. There are more than that. And I had to ask him also, but I knew the answer. I said, what's the results? And he smiled and said, much better than conventional treatment. And I think you can all understand why that works. Treat the schizophrenia, and the schizophrenia becomes important, and it takes center stage, and it grows, grows, grows. Treat the other part, and the other part grows. This is why 2 bad bricks in the wall, if that's all you see, 2 bad bricks is all that'll ever be there. See the other bricks in the wall, and then the other bricks, they're there, they're huge. And then it's just an ordinary wall. Now that you can see is how we let go of things. It's not what you maybe think, let go, throw it away, it's not there anymore. My problems, I'm not schizophrenic, ha ha ha, I'm not schizophrenic. Wow, can you see that person just floating through the air over there? I've just heard the sounds, I must get out of here now. There's more to a person than that. And once actually you can see the other part of everything, the other part grows. And that's what we mean by letting go. And it's also how you can be kind. And a similar story, anecdotes of my life, because you can't beat real life stories. There was a Buddhist nun. She was a Tibetan tradition, but in Buddhism we don't care what tradition you are, you're Buddhist, and that's all. Even if you're Catholic or Muslim or whatever, as long as you're a good person, you're my friend. I always used to say that because I went to, I actually did grow up in a poor area of London. I never realised it at the time. You never know you're poor, because everyone else is poor. But what really, now I realise, yeah, it was poor because the school I went to was full of migrants. And these were my friends. People from all over the world in the school, because migrants would come into poor areas. They never go into the rich areas. I was in a poor area, in a council flat, very small, and I used to joke that we were so poor, we'd never lock our door, because my father said he wasn't afraid of burglars, not afraid of burglars at all. In fact, he was actually hoping a burglar might come in, take pity on us and leave something. But anyway, poor area, and we had all sorts of people there. From one of my friends was a Pakistani, we had another guy who was from Jamaica, a lot from East Europe, and I didn't care where people were from. I used to say, if they were a good soccer player, they were in my team. I didn't care, what colour they were and what race they were, what religion they were, as long as they could play soccer, they were my friend, because I loved soccer in those days. And there's the same, so these days, you don't sort of distinguish between people, just good people, bad people, so you've got a lot of friends. And this one was a Tibetan nun, different tradition, but she got really bad cancer, she was dying. And she was over in the old hospice, for those in Perth again, Shenton Park. They had this beautiful hospice for people dying, and the government closed it down. That was a really stupid thing to do. You should never close down hospices because they do such a wonderful service. So anyway, I went to see her there one day because she called me. Now personally, from the hospice to the monastery, said, Ajahn Brahm, can you please come? I'm going to die in a couple of days. She did die, and 2 days later. It's amazing that when people say that, they're really sick, and they say, I'm going soon. Believe them. I don't know how they know these things, but when they say you can, put a big bet on it and you'll win, the odds are they've got it right. People know when they get to the end of their life, roughly how much time they've got left. And it's intuition, and it's always accurate. And I know that, so that as soon as she said she's only got a couple of days to live, even though I was busy, dropped everything and got a car and went to Shenton Park, which is about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half from here. And when I got there, you can't just go into the patient's room in these hospices, because they may be contagious, they may be dangerous, they may just want some peace and quiet because they're dying. And so I had to check in with the nurse. And this nurse, this old Irish nurse, she was like the medical equivalent to Margaret Thatcher. She was one tough lady. Because when I said, I'll come to see this nun, and she said, I'm sorry, you cannot. Why not? I've come all the way from Serpentine, an hour and a quarter just to see her. I don't care about that, said the nurse. We have to respect our patient's wishes. Now go away. I can't go away. She called me. She asked me to come. And this nurse got really angry at me. But sometimes you think I'm a soft guy. But I can stand my ground. I stand my ground. You're not going to do this to me. And so she said, come with me. So I came with her and she led me to the room. And on the door of this nun's room was a big sign. Absolutely no visitors, it said. And the nurse said, see? She said that to me. Now you shouldn't play with a monk like that, because the monks, we always win. Because I looked at the sign, and sure enough, that was what it said on there, big letters, absolutely no visitors. And on the bottom, in the small print, except Ajahn Brahm. And I couldn't help myself. When I saw the small print, except for Ajahn Brahm, I told that nurse, see? I felt so good about that. I shouldn't, that was really bad. A monk should be more compassionate than that. But never mind, I've got my faults and I enjoyed that. She deserved it, the way she was going on. See? And so this poor nurse, and she went off in a huff. But then when I opened the door and let myself in, this nun, she's a couple of days from dying of cancer, just all bone and skin, just no flesh on her at all. She looked terrible, and she felt terrible too. And of course, I smiled at her, hi, and I said, why do you put that on the door? I just had trouble with the nurse, and just, you said absolutely no visitors, but on the bottom except Ajahn Brahm. Why me? And then she said, because you're the only one who comes in here and makes me smile and laugh. Everyone else comes in this room and they just see my sickness and they start crying, oh, you look terrible. I don't need to hear that. I know I look terrible. Oh, it's so sad. Shut up. It's bad enough dying. And dealing with your emotional problems as well is just too much. So she said, you're the only one who comes in here and you speak to me rather than to the illness. I said, okay, Ajahn Brahm, got any jokes? So I spent the next hour not counselling her on how to die, not sort of saying, oh, try this and try that, just hanging out together, sharing time. Just as if, she was perfectly healthy and had a cup of coffee together for an hour. Because that's what she really wanted. She wanted to be treated as a normal human being for an hour. She was a Buddhist nun, she knew how to die, she knew what's going to go on. And she just wanted to be treated as a human being for once. Having been in this hospice and treating like somebody dying. She was more than her dying process, she was more than her death. And I knew that, and that's what I talked to. So I shared all these amazing jokes and got her laughing. Sometimes I used to say, take it slowly because the laughter is hurting. I've got a very weak body and it hurts to laugh. But wait a minute, okay, now, next one. And you can see there's something really beautiful in that, because you're not seeing the negative part of life. You're seeing something more to it. And now going back to those assets people, to say that's the first thing. Yeah, what you went through is disgusting. And I can never understand that, because I've never been through such stuff. But there's more to you than that. That becomes the first part of letting go. Seeing there's more. There's a reason to let go. And to see the other part of things. And when you see the whole picture, then the next stage is very easy. Same as if, you've got someone who's really hurt you and upset you, really offended you, really giving you a hard time. If all you see is the hurt they gave you, you can never forgive them, you can never move on. That's going to be a cancer, a ball and chain for the rest of your life. If you can actually move to see the other bricks in the wall, say they deserve to be forgiven, in the sense you don't get angry at them. You can't love them anymore and be part of their life anymore. You're part of their life. But you can see there's more to them than that terrible thing which they did to you, the hurt they gave you. When you can actually see that, that's the start of letting go. Now the reason I say this is not just because people coming here with problems in their life. It's problems in their meditation. Same thing, meditation life, just a reflection of one and the other. Oh, these bad meditations you've had. I'm hopeless, I can't meditate, I'm giving up. Of course you've had bad meditations, but every now and again you get a little crack between the clouds, the sun comes out, and meditation is really beautiful. And sometimes, if we don't get enough cracks, we think we can't meditate, we're hopeless. No, remember those cracks, see the whole thing, and you can actually let go of the times when the meditation didn't work. See the times the meditation did work, and understand that's all the wall of life. Even me, sometimes my meditation doesn't work. Sometimes I fall asleep as well. There's always reasons for it, but I understand this is just my mind. I can't control it. It just goes through cause and effect. Sometimes you've got good energy, everything's going well, and it's very easy to meditate. Sometimes it's harder. It's just cause and effect, that's all, nothing to do with me. When you see the big picture, you can actually forgive all of your faults, all the aches and pains, and even forgive all the anxieties in the future. Sometimes you blow it and you think of the wrong things. Monks, we're not supposed to see entertainment, but sometimes on the aircraft, I was going again with the Indonesian aircraft I was talking about the other day, and getting bored, and sitting through the magazine, and there was a movie on, and I saw the name of the movie, and it was called Cockneys versus vampires. No, zombies. Cockneys versus zombies. And I thought, wow, it's a comedy. And I've got a great weakness for comedy, just my upbringing. And it was Cockneys, it was just my friends back in London. And so I couldn't resist it. It was the funniest thing I'd seen for years. I was laughing my head off. And sometimes the people sitting next to me, would say, what are you doing? I said, Cockneys versus zombies. The zombies are winning, but I think the Cockneys will come up in the end. It is a stupid, funny movie, but sometimes I let myself do that because just humour. One of the best scenes in that, which I thought was excellent, so funny, because sometimes the Brits can make really good movies. Zombies, apparently, they walk really slowly. I mentioned that zombie meditation. And the zombies were attacking an old people's home. Okay, so the zombies attacking an old people's home. And there's one guy, you've got it, you've seen it. There was one guy there with his Zimmer frame. The Zimmer frame. And, he was really old, he couldn't walk fast. Like Anya over there being chased by a zombie. It'd be even odds, who's going to win? And these zombies were coming after the guy in his Zimmer frame, who was going as fast as he could. And his friends were cheering on, come on, you're going to make it. And the zombies were catching up. Things like that. I get sucked into that every time. It's so funny. So yeah, I made a mistake. I broke my precepts on that one, but actually I enjoyed it, I must admit. It's not really evil. You're not watching a porno movie or something. So, okay, fair enough. But stuff like that, you can laugh your head off about these things, but you don't go feeling guilty about it afterwards. Because a lot of times people beat themselves up when they make a mistake, or when mistakes happen to them, or somebody else makes a mistake. Instead, just those prisoners you see, they've done terrible crimes. They've hurt people enormously. But just letting them hurt themselves even more is no good for anybody. So in Buddhism we have this beautiful tradition. We acknowledge what we did wrong. We acknowledge the pain which other people gave to us. We don't try and hide it. We acknowledge it. We don't try and get rid of it. That's not letting go. But we forgive it, which means we don't punish. Forgive means no punishment, no anger, no guilt, no wishing that person breaks their legs and falls down a hole into a nest of red ants which eat them slowly. or whatever else you do. It's so fun to actually to think of all these cruel and inhuman punishments to the people who hurt you. But that's no good for you or good for other people. So in Buddhism we acknowledge, they did a wrong thing, I did a wrong thing, I shouldn't have done that. But then we forgive, which means no punishment. And then we learn, which is the most important part of life. We learn to do better next time. And the problem is in life, if we don't have that forgiveness, that ability of letting go, we can't go on to the next stage of learning. That is why the prisoners keep going back into jail again. That's why people keep doing the bad things again, because they never learn. And why don't they learn? Because they're afraid of punishment, and punishment hides the truth. And this came about, this particular train of Dhamma insight came about when one of the girls here in Perth, you can actually see, you go to Bodhinyana, some of the kids come when they're really young. You can little Anna over the back there yesterday for the talk. And some of these children, they've grown up with me. Their parents bring them to the temple when they're 2 or 3. And they sort of, every year they come and they hang out. They don't understand a word of what's going on, but they have a lot of happiness here. There was this Thai lady came just about 3 or 4 months ago, and she said, you probably don't remember me, but my parents worked here when I was very young. I was 3, 4, 5, 6. And I used to hang around this temple and play around this place. I never learned any Buddhism here, but it was really good fun. And then we went back to Thailand. I'm about 28 now. And I just come back to see, all these happy memories of my youth in the temple. And I was very proud of that. I said, well, what you did learn was acceptance, happiness, freedom, not being judged. That's why you enjoyed yourself here as a kid. So it's not just what you learn from the sermons or by meditating, it's the whole atmosphere. That's what really people like, and the kids get that. So some of the kids, they don't go anywhere else, they grow up here, and you see them through their teens and going to school, and they cry, when they don't get the TE exact results they wanted. But this particular girl, she was about 17, and she came up to me and said, Ajahn Brahm, I'm in big trouble. I said, what's happened? He said, I'm pregnant. She said, have you told your parents yet? Sri Lankan girl. So I'm pregnant. Have you told your parents? I said, no, they'll kill me. That's why I've come to you for. Can you please tell my parents for me? That's my job. To get her out of trouble. Because, she'd known me for such a long time, grown up with me. The parents respected me. You Sri Lankans have it. I can do that because I'm Ajahn Brahm, you respect me. So I can say, leave your kid alone, okay. She made a mistake, poor girl. And so, to get her out of trouble, by getting her parents to sort of, not sort of scold her or be ashamed of her or something. We make mistakes in life. We all make mistakes in life. But what really, really hurt me was the child felt so afraid to tell the parents because she was afraid of being punished. Maybe not physically, but scolded, just looked down upon, just mothers and fathers just shouting at her, teaching her, whatever it was, giving her lectures. But, that's not what she needed. She was in trouble. She needed her parents' assistance. And I realised, why is it that when your kids get into big trouble, they don't tell mum and dad, the people they need the most, because they're afraid of punishment. Can you understand how punishment drives the truth underground? Which means we can't just, even husbands and wives, partners, we don't tell each other what's really happened. Because my husband, he'll go bananas, he'll go ballistic if he finds out. So we hide the truth because we're afraid of punishment. That's why this idea of punishment, anger, guilt, is part of punishment. It means that we never learn. we never tell the truth and go to the next stage, which is learning not to do the same thing again. Which is why that guilt, punishment, anger has no place in Buddhism. So by forgiving means we don't accept and say, oh, this was a wonderful thing which happened to me. We don't sort of punish. We learn. Why did I do that? Let's try and get a better partner next time. Be a bit more smart, okay? Check the guy out. Ask the friends. Get police clearance or something before you get married. I don't know. Or whatever else you do. When you're going out with a guy, teenagers, don't take alcohol or drugs, because, you lose your judgment and you end up pregnant or in all sorts of problems. And there's always ways we can learn when we make mistakes in life. But when we have guilt and anger, we put off learning. That's why forgiveness, letting go, is where learning and wisdom and insight start. So that letting go leads to insight, wisdom, being calm, being peaceful, letting go of the past. Now, learn from it. It always teaches you a lot in life. So you make a mistake. I learnt when I did the funeral chanting in a marriage, to take more rest. And if I really am tired, be careful, okay? You're very tired, a bit sort of didn't sleep so well last night, I'm going to a funeral this afternoon. Remember, funeral chanting, okay, not marriage chanting. Funeral chanting, remember. I learned from that, which means you don't make the mistake so often again. But why do people keep making the same mistakes? Because of anger and guilt. They never learn. Why do the prisoners keep going back to jail? Because they can't forgive themselves. That's all it really is. So this actually learns how to let go of stuff. When you let go of all the faults, you can have so much more fun in life. Yeah, there's two bad bricks in the wall. Yeah, it makes it really interesting. Yeah, the trees are all crooked and bent. Yeah, but that's nice. This is life. Or like this monk. This might apply to you. I don't know if you have somebody in your cottage who snores and keeps you awake. But, you look at the ages here, and if you're over 40, you're all going to be snoring. 50. You always think, no, I don't snore. Of course you think you don't snore. You're asleep when it happens. But, ask your partner, chances are you snore. And there was one of our monks, it was old Bodhidharma, was it Bodhidharma or somebody, their brother was coming to visit. And there was no accommodation in Bodhidharma. We were really full all the time. So I said, well, how can he stay with you? There's no spare rooms. They're all taken. He said, oh, he's my brother. We shared a room when we were growing up. He can share the room with me in my little hut. It's really small. He said, oh, man, it's my brother. I said, okay, but be careful. And I warned him of this. At the age you are now, you and your brother will probably snore. He said, oh, it doesn't matter. He's my brother. And of course, it happened. That they went to after talking, till late in the night, with his brother about things, catching up. They lay down to go to sleep. His brother went to sleep first of all, and after 5 minutes, really loud snoring, and this monk couldn't go to sleep. How can you go to sleep in a small room, when somebody is, acting like an elephant? And you think you've got problems. You've got actually a brick wall between you and the next person, but still, it reverberates. And oh, what should I do? And then he remembered these great teachings of, it's not the noise disturbs you, it's you who disturb the noise. That was Ajahn Chah's teaching. Don't get angry at it. Just accept it, embrace it. So he said, how can I accept and embrace this awful snoring? And he did what we call playing around with perception. So instead of looking at the snoring as something awful, he used just simple imagination to imagine it as like some avant-garde new age music. The sort you'd find in some backstreet bars in New York somewhere. Cutting edge stuff. And when he started to see if he could look at this snoring like some great music, He said, no, it took him about 5 or 10 minutes, that's all. And then the last thing he remembers is his brother's snoring was just so melodious. And that's the last thing he remembered, because he woke up in the morning having a nice deep night's sleep. That's really brilliant. He changed his perception of seeing the faults in the snoring, the 2 bad bricks in it, and see the other part of it. Because you can always see the beauty in anything, which is an amazing thing to be able to do, but you can do that. So whatever you see, I've already told you, in the toilet bowl, you can see the beauty in a piece of shit. If you can do that, there's no limit to what you can't do with perception. You see the beauty in anything. And even in the difficulties and pains and disappointments of life. You see it, the old story which I say to people, it's the fertilizer for the mango tree. You put the dog poo under the mango tree, 1 year later, your mangoes are sweeter than ever before because of the dog poo. The dog shit, that's the things which have happened to you in life. If you put them under the mango tree, in your heart, and you allow them to be embraced, it changes into the most delicious mangoes. But I always have to say, when you eat those mangoes, because I like mangoes, when they're really the juicy ones, the mango season has gone in Australia, you get the sort of the fake ones right now, but about a month or 2 months ago, there's beautiful mangoes in Perth. And when you eat those mangoes and the juice runs down your cheek, always must remember what you're really eating. You're eating dog shit. That's what went down into it. It's just been transformed into delicious, sweet, mangoes. That's how we transform things, by a change of attitude. Snoring into delicious music. Pain into wisdom. Anger into this beautiful compassion. We transform these things. That's what letting go is. So we're meditating here, not fault finding. I've been meditating for 3 or 4 days, I've got nothing. That's fault finding. Amazing, think of all the stuff you have got. Haven't been to work in 5 or 6 days. Haven't had to get up early in the morning. Haven't had a partner always arguing with you. This is very quickly, those of you who have got partners, the way to overcome arguments in a marriage, very simple, very effective. Got this from one of the monks about 6 months ago. Every marriage I tell people this is how to stop arguments in marriage, because in a marriage we always want to be right. You can't both be right, not all of the time. So make it fair, make it even, make it so that you don't have to argue who's right and who's wrong by using the calendar method. The calendar method of marriage counselling is when you have an argument, you look at the calendar, find out what the date is. It's the 22nd today. It's an even day. So even days of the month, the husband's right. The odd days of the month, the wife is right. So you're right, both people are right the same amount of time, roughly. And it means you don't have to argue who's right and who's wrong. You're having an argument, what he's doing, he said, look, it's the 13th today, that's an odd number. I'm right, says the wife. And if it's an even day, the husband's right. It solves all the problems. You don't have to waste time arguing. And yeah, she's right today, but he's right tomorrow, so it's fair. Try that, it works. People think, that's simple. Yeah, but it's much better than arguing. And argue with your partner all the time and just finding out who's right and who's wrong and one party dominating the other. That's no marriage, so keep it fair. Odd days she's right, even days he's right. Okay? No more marriage problems at all. People try that and it actually works. Simple but effective. But anyway, that's how we can let go of many of these things. When we let go of these things, it's much easier to get peace in meditation. There's no negativity anymore. It's all more fertilizer from my mango tree. We never get into fault finding and negativity. Anything which doesn't go right, we learn from it, we grow from it, it's fine. Which means we're so at peace with our life. We're so at peace with our body. We're so at peace with our meditation. If you're a fault finder, you'll never be satisfied until you've got jhana. And even if you've got jhana, it's not the best jhana. I want the best, the fourth. I've only got the third. It's amazing how people can find fault. Even they got jhanas and they still want more. Come on, this is good enough. So good enough is the opposite of fault finding. This is good enough. Good enough for me. Yeah, maybe I've only just managed to get the present moment awareness, and that's only for a couple of moments in a row, but that's good. Stop finding fault with yourself. And this is a beautiful compassion, acceptance, being at peace with this moment. And that way it's called letting go. Letting go is being happy to be here. Wanting to be somewhere else, wanting to be somewhere else. We call that a prison. I told that story before. I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to say it now. But want to be here wherever you are, with whatever you've got, with whatever's happening. If you want to be somewhere else, you never find peace. And stop fault finding. Want the wall to have these beautiful crooked bricks. Want the lawn around the stupas to be always eaten, even though we put a lot of money in that lawn, by these ravenous kangaroos at night time. There's always faults in the place, and you try to fix them up, and then something comes along and unfixes them. That's life. So just laugh at it, embrace it, and have fun. That's it. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And don't find fault with my stupid sadhus. What's he doing this for? It's crazy. I demand my right to be crazy.